let me start with a congratulations. This is an absolutely gorgeous recording.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely one of my favorites so far this year. Not at all surprised. But maybe we can start with the title, Architectures of Light. What is the thinking behind that?
Bill, you take it, because it was Bill's impetus, I think, to make that title work.
I don't know. I mean, so many of the songs just recalled different kinds of light conditions, for lack of a better idea, but also the idea, the plural is also the idea of the particle and the wave. You know, if you think about our music, it's sort of both particular, but also very wave-like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a pun on architectures, and that's I like puns a lot in the word plays. So, and Stephen was also a poet for many years, so we kind of bounced the titles off each other, and so
right.
The notes to the album use the phrase organic flow to describe your process. It's fascinating to me. I mean, of course, COVID has triggered a lot of these virtual collaborations that we've seen, but of course, the technology has existed a lot longer than that. How was it for you both? How did you find working that way together?
Oh, for us, it was not a problem. We found that we worked in a very similar fashion. In fact, alarmingly similar sometimes.
Yes.
We use different platforms. I use Logic, and Bill uses, what would you say, mainly Ableton?
Ableton. Yeah, Ableton.
So we would send each other raw files, and then just, in fact, it got crazy because we would have a pile of files and then just build right on top of that. We lost track of something. So it was very easy for us. And I think that's why part of what we saw in each other's music, we've been around, and, we're thinkers. And when you look at another person like you, you say, okay, I can play. That's all. You don't wonder about why. You just know you can do it.
Yeah. But I think there was a shared, we each gave each other room to do stuff, and then we would kind of tighten it back in. So it was like go out and then come in and go out and come in. And the final mixes are, although it's fairly minimal, they're very layered. They're much more complex than you would imagine, I think.
Yeah.
How much back and forth is there in a project like this?
A very tremendous amount.
Yeah. Back and forth a few times a day, almost.
Oh, at least. Sometimes one back and forth would be a half a day, just saying, shall I tweak this thing? Or I don't like I don't like what the piano did there, because that reverberation, and shall I use a different size of a room, and should I, very fine tuning. That's kind of what we were about.
Well, what happens when you disagree?
We really haven't disagreed. There's only been one thing I can think of that I ever said, oh, geez, let's not do that. But, we're gentlemen. If we don't agree, Bill will say, I'm not feeling that. And then I will go and look at it because Bill said it,
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, the mixes, and often we would do many mixes and trials of a particular, set of things. And sometimes they would start very minimally and build up. And then I think that's a similar thing that we do. We sort of build things up until we get like this very dense set of repeating things, basically. And then we cut it away. Would you say that's what we do? And then it's very physical, it's very sculptural. I've been saying my whole approach to music is it's never written ever. So the writing of it is using Ableton and using samples and using solos, that often I'll work with somebody who'll do a set of solos, and I can literally listen and say, is that working or is that not working?
Yeah.
And we both, I think, have an ability to kind of hear the sound of what we're trying to get at before we even do it. Do you think that's that's the case with me? Stefan, is that?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we both work in that one particular way where we layer and layer and make a mess and then kick it back, and then we start. It's just like sculpting. It's like if anyone's ever done ceramics, when you get the little blade and the loop and you start cutting away, we cut away until, there have been times in some of these pieces we've cut away till almost zero, back down, and that's difficult to do, but that's part of the process that I particularly love, and I know you do.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question of each of you. Stefan, maybe start with you. As someone who has collaborated with other artists regularly, what's unique about working with Bill?
The fact that we're so similar, and that we we literally, it's like we share a brain when we start working, and there's never a problem. Even if Bill says, this is going somewhere weird, I go, okay, and I adjust it, and I say the same thing to him, but we very rarely have to even say that. So it's a different, some collaborations are like make you want to pull your teeth out, and but he and I, somehow we just knew, in fact, it started up so quickly because Bill said, well, let me send you these files right now. And I was like, okay. And all of a sudden I opened a file, and then we were there. We just dropped right into the thing. So it's, I think that it's really the best collaboration ever, because we just have a way of understanding what each other's doing. Also, we've been at it, so we do understand what each other's doing. Like if he does something, I'll say, okay, I knew where you're going. I don't have to say I knew you were going with this. And we'll use the shorthand. They'll say, let's slow that down. Okay, the end.
I have
Maybe
to
the
say,
one time that was the most difficult was I was getting, like, in the piano, too complex. It was too not complex, very, very dissonant and hard to follow. And I just said, well, take it apart. Use the parts that you want to work with, and that worked perfectly well, and it came out very beautifully in the end.
Yeah.
I have to say, Stefan, when you sent me the note to tell me about the partnership, my immediate reaction was, of course. To hear that. Bill, how about you? Any perspective on what's unique about working with Stefan?
Well, he's somebody who loves music, and he's listening all the time, and I'm like that as well. We both are consumers, I would say, and so we have a broad understanding of what each other listens to and is looking for, and we both are visual people as well as
Exactly, yes.
music people, and I very much liked his visual aesthetics and stuff as well. So I keep trying to get him to send me his poetry, but he won't do it. But yeah. But this is, in a certain way, the way that you use cut up and language, and that is your poetry now. So
yeah.
The way you describe the iterative process that you followed, there must have been surprises along the way. Did you find that?
Oh yeah, I especially can speak for myself, saying that I set up systems to give me surprises, because one thing I can't do is, like, I'm too skilled a musician. Like, I spent years on the road and this and that, so I can sit down and play with any band, and I can play this, I can play that. So I can't allow myself to just sit down and play notes. I have to continually fool myself. So I set up a system that helps me to randomize And, I have all these old tape decks, and I do tape loops, and then I destroy them with other things, and also programs within Logic, because you can build your own stuff. And right before Bill and I started to work, I had a severe system crash on I have two Macs in front of me here. My older Mac, completely wiped out. And I was in shock because I'm a Mac user since day one. And, but I lost all the instruments that I had built in Logic, because you can build your own instruments. And that's what I worked with. So now when I open files, say from Spirit Radio or something, it'll say, these files are not here, and, too bad. And there's no way to get them back. So Bill and I also were starting to work in a very new way. And I was still using the iterative stuff, and but I have to continually fool myself. I can't sit down and go like ding, 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 it's too easy. And so I want to make it difficult. I think Bill does the same thing, don't you, Bill?
Well, with piano, I'll sit down and I'll improvise for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And lots of things will fall apart. I'll have a sense of what I'm wanting to make. And then I edit just little pieces, that might be 30 seconds or a minute. And then when I'm working, I just drag them over. So there's a lot of chance juxtapositions.
Yeah.
I might choose 15 of those and lay them out and listen to how something's working with other things in the layers. And then I just throw away most of that and just keep the little things that are working. So it's also a kind of, I was very influenced by Cage, but alternately it's loading the dice. It's like, how can I get these things to be a sensibility that means something to me, that has feeling and so on.
I'd really love both your perspectives on more of a big picture question that I've asked artists in the past. What do you think this music, this ambient music that incorporates found sounds, distressed electronics, and so forth, what does it say about our time? Is there a commentary there about what the 21st century, at least the early stages of it, are all about?
It's certainly a comment on the way we're listening. And I mean, we, a people, humanity, we listen differently. And I listen to music from every age. And sometimes I'll hear like a Thelonious Monk, bootleg, and I'll say, that sounds so cool. But it didn't sound cool when it was, and I was listening to The Clash last night, and they were horrific, somebody recorded on a Walkman, and thinking that, it sounds great now, but when you recorded it, people would have said, don't come to me with that. So the way we listen, and that is sort of shaped by, right now we're at a very interesting point, because we've had technology. Now we're, things have to always have, I think, some grit, but now the grit is like an important thing. In fact, I'm starting to get tired of people using grit as their only, that's all they've got. And Bill and I both work the way that we use any distortion, any grit, any sound. To me, they're all sound, everything, whether it's a piano or whether it's a pile of static. So we use them as things. I just call them things. There's a thing within the composition. And but I think as a species right now, we want the grit, and I think it's very interesting. I think it goes back to Marshall McLuhan, actually. I think it's kind of that, it's a global consensus, but it's one that snuck in, and I'm wondering how long it's going to last. Are we going to want to hear the grit in 10 years?
I think that's a fascinating question. I mean, are you getting, with the McLuhan reference, are you getting to the idea that it's an active questioning of what is musical, that we are aware of the medium even as we are enjoying it?
Yeah, but I think it's more that we're aware of the process of the medium. The medium itself, I don't think people are that much more sophisticated when they hear a song and they go, oh, that's a good song. That's the end of it. Oh, that's a hit. I just think that since technology's changed, we're at a point now where you can't refine technology anymore. You can make a recording sound a little more slick, a little more produced, but there's that other whole thing where, the grit is some sort of hope for, let's call it realness. It's, I think that's where it works on most people. But Bill and I, we approach it differently.
Well, I mean, I would say that if you're listening to different kinds of noises and you hear it musically, when you're just in the environment and you listen to living in a different way, because that vocabulary is something that's normal to you. So it doesn't. So the environment of noise that once would be like, oh, let's turn that off, or if you suddenly go like, that I really like that sound, it's very, and so I would say two things: the notion of a kind of psychological state, and also a kind of transcendence of time. So we're not trying to do a kind of classical structure that builds up and has a crescendo, and I think we're doing kind of like these plateaus that have moments that are maybe a little more. I mean, Stefan might have a different sense of that, but I think very much about this very flat, a kind of time that you go into, and then you lose a sense of time in a way. You're in it, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there a commentary on technology and music going on at all, either in your work or other works that you hear?
Bill will tell us.
A commentary. Well, I mean, we use we like malfunctions, and we like intentionally incorporating noise and things that might have been intentionally taken out of music historically. Dolby noise reduction is trying to get rid of all the crackles and pops, and they all have a kind of meaning of their own. And then when you layer them together, what's the word? It's a gestalt. It's like all of those things make a certain kind of mood, and different of our songs have fairly different. I mean, they work together somehow, but as we're working on it, they were pretty different in approaches. Some of them. Some were much more about ambient worlds, and some were much more about sort of mechanical things, and some were more romantic, for lack of a better term.
I love Stefan's question about the potential longevity of grit. Do you have a view, Bill? I mean, do you think that we're still talking about this kind of texture in music 10 years from now?
I would think so. I mean, whenever we talk about music, I'm sorry. Caller. Whenever we talk about music, there's music right there. Whenever we talk about music, we forget that these recordings are with us now. And I'm listening almost constantly to things that were produced in 1975 or 1930, or and all of them have their own milieu. Like if I listen to historical Miles Davis recordings or something like that, there's a certain sound and things that are included or not included. And but for me, they're timeless in the sense that I can listen to those things 50 years later and like them each for their own set of qualities, if that makes sense. So,
sure.
I mean, I have things that I made, 20, 30 years ago that still sound very present today. On my website, there's lots of old media pieces, and you'll hear, oh, he was using piano in 1983 with echo, and that's a long time ago. So yeah.
And it's
We
one of
continue it as a
it's one of the things I think about contemporary music that often gets overlooked is its timeless nature. That you can listen to works that are 40, 50, even longer, even more years old than that. And if they are genuinely inventive, they are always genuinely inventive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I think about a piece like from Charles Ives, The Unanswered Question. And it's absolutely beautiful. And sometimes I'm inspired to, how can I get at that thing, but not in my way, if that makes any sense. Or Cage's very early piano pieces, I find very beautiful. From the Obscure label, the piece, the album Jan Steele and John Cage, and on the John Cage side, they're just so lovely. These, and they're also very, very flat, you know. And there was a quite nice album that came out about. Well, anyway, it's on the shelf back there, which was a whole series of Cage's number pieces, and they're really relevant now. I mean, the way they were interpreted, maybe it's how contemporary people, having lived through, you know, what we're doing and other people have been doing for a long time, then reinterprets. Maybe that's part of that. I don't.
Will we get more music from you both?
For sure.
Yeah. In fact, after we sent the album off to Hand Stitched, Tim liked it so much that he mastered it immediately, and I discovered 2 pieces that we forgot to put on the album, and they're really good. And they actually, what will be nice is when we do another thing, it will lean more towards this. Bill put some brilliant strings, and strings are almost atonal and all, you know, quasi, you know, just they're beautiful, then they're atonal, then they're not, and it's gorgeous. And I think we'll be working in those areas a little more quote unquote musical. We'll always be messing with sound. Yeah, but I think I mean, I would like to see more of that. But who knows? Once we start working, we're working. We don't think, oh, I got to see more of this or that. We don't work that way. We just work.
Well, it was funny because Tim Diagram. What's Tim's real last name?
Morgan.
And from, you know, he runs Hand Stitched, and he talked to me about doing one of these shared albums, and so we immediately sent the whole album, and he said, yeah, let's do the whole album.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
we had a little handwritten list of who we would like to share with, and you know, we did what we did.
Well, we can't wait for more. Thank you guys very much.